Recording in progress.
Today's daf we're going to learn is Ketubot Daf Lamed Gimel. Before we start, we're going to do a quick review of Ketubot Daf Lamed Bet, or really the bottom of Lamed Aleph Lamed Bet. We started with a contradiction between our Mishnah and the Mishnah in Makot, okay, where it said the same situation, or seemingly the same, even though it wasn't really talking about rape necessarily, but they assume it's probably rape there also, where there, someone who rapes their or sleeps with their sister or any of those people get, right, the arayot that we had, gets lashes, and here they pay a knas, a penalty. To which Ula said, oh, don't worry, one is achoto na'ara, where there's a law, that's our Mishnah, where there's a law of knas, and there it's talking about achoto bulgaria when there is no monetary payment, because if there was a monetary payment, you would actually pay the money and you wouldn't get lashes, because that's his general rule. When there's money and lashes, you pay money. Rabbi Yochanan says the opposite. When there's money and lashes, you actually get lashes. So it must be that the case in our Mishnah was a case where they didn't warn them. And since they weren't warned, they don't have to get the punishment of lashes. Okay? Now, then we said, well, if normally, according to Rabbi Yochanan, there's money, when there's money and lashes, you get lashes, then what about hachovel and edim zomimim, where you actually pay and you don't get lashes? To which the Gemara said there are exceptions to the rule, and they proved from the verses how we know there are exceptions to the rule. Later on today's daf, we're going to have different possibilities as to how we know that these are exceptions to the rule, and for learning it actually out of different verses. For edim zomimim, we'll have one option. For hachovel, we're going to have two different alternatives. Our daf is going to start with the last line in Lamed Bet and Bet, where the Gemara asks, Rabbi Yochanan, my time alo amar ka'ula. Why didn't he hold like Ula? Now, Ula, if you remember, I also forgot to remind you about this. Ula learned it from, in the end, how do we know that you get, that you pay money and not lashes? Because Ula learns it from tachat tachat. Because it says tachat asherina, and it says ayin tachat ayin, just like ayin tachat ayin is mammon, also tachat asherina is mammon, monetary payment. So now we want to know why didn't he hold like Ula? So the first answer is, which we're going to have some difficulties with, and we're going to struggle to understand a little bit, and in the end, the Gemara is going to reject it. So sometimes it's okay we struggle to understand, because sometimes it's really not so clear, and in the end, they're going to reject it for that reason. There will be no way to have this pasuk be relevant. What does it mean be relevant? Well, it's a lo tasing. Don't reveal the erva of your sister. Now, don't reveal means if you do, you'll get lashes. So now, in what case you're going to get lashes if we always make you pay? Now, it's a little bit weird because that pasuk is not only talking about rape or seducing, and it's also not only talking about a young girl, right? Remember, knas is only by a young girl. You could theoretically be marrying her, and that would be erva. You could, right, any kind of, right, but I guess marriage, since there is no marriage, maybe you would say, well, that's rape or seducing. In any case, well, we'll figure out a rejection to this later, but right now the Gemara thinks that the only way to have it would be in a rape or seduction case where there would also be a penalty, a monetary penalty. And then if we always say mammon overrides the lashes, well, then you'll never get lashes for this. So then the Gemara says, well, let's take the other cases where we pay money and we don't have lashes. And we said there is a lo taseh involved there. So, right, chovel b'chavero im nami, same issue. In can be tata lo yosif pen yosif. That was what we learned yesterday, that you cannot hit someone, and if you do, you'll get lashes. Now, in the end, we said, right, there's a drasha to say why you don't get lashes, but that pasuk will never come true. There's no lashes there either, ever, if you're always going to pay money. And the beginning of Masechet Makot, they learn that when you can't give the punishment of kasher zamam, like for example, if you say about somebody he's the son of a grusha or son of a chalutza, you don't get the punishment of edim zomimim for various reasons we'll talk about in a minute. But they learn vayan bin akot rasha from that pasuk, which is actually verses that are dealing with the punishment lashes, that it includes this kind of a case of edim zomimim, and you get lashes. Okay, that there's this is a reference, okay, a kind of hidden reference to edim zomimim, and then you won't get lashes for edim zomimim if that's the case, because you're always going to have to pay, like we said. So, to which the Gemara answers, no. If you really are quoting that Gemara from Masechet Makot, you'll know that ele edim zomimim efshar l'kiyumei beben grusha or ben chalutza. If someone comes and testifies about someone that they're the son of a divorcee with a Kohen, or the son of a chalutza with a Kohen, in which case they're a halal, their children will be halalim. So You can't have there's no kasher zamam in that case. It's an exception to the rule. Why? Because this is not only messing up you, it's messing up your children. And it says kasher zamam lasot lo, like you tried to do to him, not also to his children. Lo velo lezaro. Oh, the Gemara says not to him and not him and his children. And therefore, in that case, you'll get lashes. So there is a kiyum of vayami and a kotakasha by edim zomamim in that unique case. We saw this yesterday. There is a case of chovel where you get lashes. If there's no monetary value, it's less than a pruta, less than a coin, then you actually get lashes. So there is a case of lashes where lo yosif will be true. To which the Gemara says, well then, if you think that, and this is where I told you from the beginning, this was difficult. Also, the case of achoto could have lashes when the achoto is already bogeret and there's no kanas when she's already beyond the age of 12 and 6 months. So that's not a good answer. So now we're going to have a different answer. And some people even say there's a different girsa, which says Ela Rabbi Yochanan. In other words, instead of that, we're going to give you a different answer. Rabbi Yochanan says, hi, why doesn't he hold like Rish Lakish? Hi, tachat asherina. He doesn't have this tachat word that Rish Lakish used as his proof, free or available for Gzera Shava, because he uses it for something else. He needs it for what Abaye said. Following drasha, the Amar Abaye, Amalka, the pasuk says, Tachat asherina, because he tortured her, right? This is why you have to pay the knas if you rape a woman, because he tortured her. Hi, Tachat asherina, michlal diikaboshet upkam. This means, why is he paying? It says in the pasuk he pays 50 kesef, and then it says because he tortured her. Okay, ina. Now, what do they learn from Tachat Asherina? That the 50 kesef only takes care of some of it, but there's also boshet and pagam. In other words, we talked about this the other day. There's not just knas, there's other payments as well. Where do we learn that from? Tachat Asherina. He pays the 50 kesef, the 200 zuz, right? Because he tortured her. But in addition, there's boshet, there's pagam, there's other things as well. So, Ula, now we're stuck. If Tachat Asher, so first of all, we've explained Rabbi Yochanan doesn't know like Rish Lakish because of Tachat Asherina. But what? Because he uses Tachat for something else to learn about Boshet and Pagam. But where's Ula going to learn that from? Doesn't Ula learn that there's Boshet and Pagam? Where's he going to get that from? Ula nafkalemi de Rava. Don't worry about that. He's going to learn it from a different place. Amar Rava, Amar Krav Natana Isha Shochebima, the man who slept with her, gives la'avi anara to the father of the girl 50 kasef. Why did you have to say the man who sleeps with her? Right? Theoretically, it's just the man. What other man are we talking about in that pasuk? If not the rapist that we were just mentioned in the verse before. To which they say, why does it say ashokevima? To teach you hana'at shchiva 50. The fact that he benefited from having sexual relations with this woman who wasn't interested in doing that with him, right? That from that benefit he got from that woman, that's what he has to pay the 50 kesef for. But that doesn't involve the other issues that are at stake here. Michlal de'ika boshet upgam, right? But what about the girl, right? That's that he benefit maybe from something that wasn't magielo, right? Something that wasn't his. He wasn't allowed to. But what about the fact that he also caused her embarrassment and he caused her, right, suffering? So, right, and the pagam, now she's not a virgin anymore. That's now going to mess her up, that in the future she's going to get less money for her ketubah. So that he has to pay her back for in addition to the knas. Okay, that's the end of that section. But it's not fully the end of that section. Before we move on, actually, I want to point out, so far we had two explanations. We're going to have a third to resolve the contradiction between our Mishnah and the Mishnah in Mako. And both of them were Ula and Rabbi Yochanan, who were both from Israel. Also, Rabbi Elazar, who's going to come in right now, is from Israel. And later, we're going to see Rish Lakish, who has a third resolution to the contradiction. Rabbi Elazar is not coming to resolve the contradiction. He's coming, as I mentioned before, to give us a different reason, a different pasuk, a different way that we know that Edim Zomimim, where Rabbi Elazar said, Beferish Ribtat Torah Edim Zomimim L'Tashlumim, that they pay and don't get lashes. It's an exception to the rule. He's going to learn it from somewhere else. Rabbi Elazar Omer, Edim Zomimim, Mamona Mishalme Milka Lolake, they pay money and not lashes, Mishum Delav B'nei Hatra'aninu, because they can't be warned. That's why. The reason they don't get lashes is because there is no warning. Okay. Now, what? Well, right now, I shouldn't say they can't. They aren't warned. They get punished even without warning. Now that's why they don't get lashes, because lashes you need a warning for. Amarava teda. Now the question is, and we're going to have two answers, why don't they get warned? Amarava teda. It's just an impossibility. Theoretically, they should get warned, because everyone who gets punished gets warned. But there's no way to warn them. And that's why they won't get lashes. Why? Let's do it, let's say the day before, or an hour or two before. Can't do that because Amrei Ishtalian. They'll say, we forgot. Okay, this is the whole reason you warn someone, is to make sure that what they did it intentionally. So if you do the warning right before the action, you'll know that when they say, yes, I don't care, I'm doing it anyway, they can't say, I've forgotten that minute. But if you did it an hour before or a day before, they could say, I forgot. Why don't we do it as they're about to, right before they testify? They will just say, you know what, it's not worth it. If you start warning them right before they're about to testify, it's hard to come forward and, witnesses who testify don't do it for their own sake. They do it for, the better of, the good of Klal Yisrael, or for the world, or, you're coming out, okay, you're doing it for someone else. You're not doing it for your own sake. So if they have no self-interest and you come and you say to them, listen, you know that if you become Edim Zamimim, you'll get punished. You might say, maybe this isn't worth it for me. So we don't want to do that. And in fact, Rashi says, and this works a little better with the Gemara, the continuation of the Gemara, since Ho'il, they'll say, Ho'il ba'anu chashudim be'enechem, you embarrassed us to, what, are you threatening us? You think maybe we're lying? I don't know, what do I need this for, right? He says, Malanu v'litzara, what do I need this headache for? The people are accusing me of being a false witness. I don't need this, okay? We don't want to deter witnesses from coming forward. So there's one more option, which is a little bit of a weird one. Nitru behu levaself. Let's do it after they already testify. Well, that for sure we can't do my da'ava. That was already done. Once they testify, we already learned. It's too late. They can't change their testimony at that point. So that would be a useless warning. Well, Abaye says that's not necessarily true. Because nitrebu b'toch kedei dibur, you could do it immediately after, the second after, which they theoretically could say, I changed my mind within a second of finishing. But so Tosfot says, theoretically, you could have said that. And it's a possibility because then they've already testified, and then you don't have an issue. Another question on Rabba. We could warn them the day before, an hour before, and then just do a little small, gesture to remind them about it. And then you'll know that they're doing it intentionally. So that works well with Rashi that says if you say it in court, we think you're lying falsely. They'll say, what do I need this for? So then you won't have that because they'll just kind of do a little gesture. It won't be this big embarrassment in front of everybody in the court. If you say, and the Ritva says that this is the reason that I mentioned before, which is you say that they just won't want the hassle of it, right? And the fear that maybe, false witnesses might come and turn them into Edim Zomimim, and then they'll get really punished. Like, what do I need this for? So this answer doesn't really resolve that. Anyway, Hadran or Abaye. So now Abaye says, Lav milti damre. What I said wasn't really true. Now, it's a little bit weird here because what Abaye is going to do is bring an alternative explanation to Rav. I don't know if it means it's not exactly true. Maybe what he means to say, and again, the commentaries have difficulty with this line. Maybe what he's saying is, what I suggested was they could do it toch kedei dibur, but really, I don't think they need to be warned at all. And we're going to see why. Okay, what Rabba was basically saying is theoretically they need warning, but they can't be warned. Okay, and that was, again, they're both explaining Rabbi Elazar, who said that you learn it from the fact that they don't get warned. That's why they don't get lashes, because there was no warning. Rabba says, why is there no warning? Because there can't be a warning. Abaye says, it's a technicality, right? Theoretically, they need to be warned, or they should be warned, but we don't have a time to warn them. Abaye says, no, there's a real inherent reason why they don't get warned. Okay, what's the reason? He's saying they don't need warning. You think they need warning, just we can't warn them. They don't need warning at all. If you want to say Edim Zomimim need warning, then right? If you didn't warn them, if you really think they need warning, then if you didn't warn them, they can't be killed either. Now, why don't they need warning? What's the whole thing of Edim Zomimim? They get the punishment they tried to do to somebody else. Now, what they tried to do to someone else, they tried to accuse someone, let's say, of murder. when the person was never warned about murder. Now they come forward and say, yes, we saw this person murder. We saw he was warned before, but they're lying. There was no warning. They tried to get someone killed without warning. Therefore, the inu ba'u hatra'ah, right? You're going to make them need a warning then? They tried to kill someone without warning, and they would have succeeded had no one made them edim somim. So therefore, they should be killed without warning. You need. If you make them get a warning, then it's not going to be parallel to what they tried to do to somebody else. That's why, for an inherent reason, they don't need warning. Just like when Rabbi gave his explanation in Abaye and Rav Acha questioned it, here also we have a question on Abaye. So then, let's say if you don't have kasher zamam, like for example, the ben grusha ben chalutza case, they learned it out from a different pasuk that they get punished. Then maybe then maybe they should be warned because they're not getting the punishment they tried to do. So in that case, you're saying maybe then they need to be warned before that. Amar Kras, so Abaye answers, or the Gemara answers for him. The pasuk says mishpat echad yelachem, which means there's one law for you, which is darshant here to say mishpat shaveh lekulchem. All edim of mim have the same rules, even though 98% of the cases don't need warning, right? And maybe you would say this one does, but we make for ben grusha ben chalutza, we make the law the same for all cases. Okay, moving on now. Now we're going to get to a different reason. Okay, so that was an alternative explanation for how we know the edim of mim pay and don't get lashes. They don't get lashes because there was no warning. Now we're going to say hachovel, right? And in the previous stuff, we said it was because of the words yad b'yad, which is money passing hands. Now, from hachovel on the previous stuff, we learned because it says kain yinatein bo, which is something that gets passed, money. Now we're going to learn that Rav Shisha, and then we're going to have a second explanation. In the end, it's going to be three explanations for why hachovel is an exception to the rule. It pays money and not lashes. Shisha braid Rav Idi Amar chovel b'chavero nami mamon v'shalem v'mulka v'olake mehacha. How do we know you pay money and not lashes? From here. We saw this case before. Two men are fighting, and they end up injuring this pregnant woman, and she loses the baby. He said it's matzut from yinatzu. It's a quarrel that has to do with death, meaning the two men were fighting to the death. They were ready to kill each other. Dichtiv. How do we know this? Because it says right now we're going to understand this literally. If an ason happens, and if again two men are fighting to kill each other, what happens? If they don't kill the woman, right? Then we said you pay. If they were to kill the woman, what would happen? Even though they weren't intending to kill the woman, they were trying to kill each other. But there was intent to kill. In the end, they killed somebody else. They would also get the death penalty, right? That's nefesh tachat nefesh. Yeah. Hey chidami, what's the case? If they were never warned about death, then they wouldn't get the death penalty. So it must be, it must be they were warned, if you kill each other, you're going to get the death penalty. Now, here comes the big line. We want to show that there was warning also for lashes, and yet you pay money. Okay? Now, if we assume if you warn them for money, for death, then that would include anything less severe like lashes. So basically, they're warned that if they kill each other, they're going to get the death penalty. From there, they're also warned that if they injure each other, they're going to get lashes and or monetary payment. The hatra'ah, the warning doesn't have to do with monetary payment that you do even without lashes, without warning. It's only the lashes that need the warning. So now we assume that you were warned about malkot also. Now you weren't. But the point is, since you were warned about death in the case of death, right, death penalty in the case if you killed each other, then it includes, if you hit the person, you're also liable for lashes. Now, and then, v'amar rachmana v'lo yason anoshi anesh. But then it says in the Torah that if there's no tragedy, meaning, right, again, you might call this tragedy, but again, the baby doesn't, the fetus is not viable anymore, right? The fetus doesn't make it, but the woman is not, right? She just gets injured. You pay money now, or again, maybe just injured in the sense that she loses her baby, but she doesn't die. Then Now, remember, what did we say? If you injure someone, you also are liable for lashes. And in this case, you were warned for lashes. So you should get lashes. And yet the pasuk says you have to pay money. So from there, we learn money overrides. That's that. But Rav Ashi has two issues with this assumption, okay? That mutra l'davar kal, have a mutra l'davar chamor. If you're warned for something severe, you're also warned for something kal, which meant two things, right? If we warn you for death, you're going to also be warned for lashes because death is more severe than lashes. You would probably agree with that. Well, Rav Ashi doesn't agree with it. How do you know this? Number one, if I warn you for something severe, that means I'm also warning you for something less severe. If something less severe happens, you're already warned that this will be your punishment. You'll get lashes. First of all, not necessarily. And even if you say yes, moving out on a bet, how do you know that death is more severe than lashes? Maybe lashes are more severe. Now, this sounds a little strange, but we're going to say to Amar Rav, and Rav is going to bring up somewhat, I say in quotes, historical proof. Okay, it's not exactly historical proof, but it's from an event that happened in history. If, okay, let's go back to Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, right? What happened? They were told they had to worship idols, and they didn't worship the idols, and they were sent to the lion's den. Now, what happened here? They say this very crazy thing. Ilmale nagdua, if they had given lashes to them instead of telling them, we're going to kill you, then Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, Palchulitzalma. They probably would have worshipped idols. Okay, they basically would have said, sorry, it was a kivshana esh. I was confused for a minute. It was Daniel that went to the govareyot. It was I was just checking that, they were thrown into a fiery furnace. Thrown into the fiery furnace, they were willing to die because dying is a momentary thing. But to get tortured, they weren't willing to get tortured because torture could be endless, right? You don't want that. So from there, we see that lashes could be perceived as more severe. Now, I say it's historical. We don't really know that that's true. They're just making an assumption. So Amrei Rav Sama Bered Rav Asi the Rav Ashi. Some people say Amrei Rav Sama Bered Rav Ashi the Rav Ashi. Rav Sama, either the son of Rav Asi or the son of Rav Ashi, questions Rav Ashi. So it might have been his own son, and says, you're comparing Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, who were going to be tortured by Nebuchadnezzar, right, or by the Babylonians. Then you're going to talk about that. You're going to compare that to the threat of Malkot. Malkot ends 39 lashes, right? It's 40 in the Torah. It's 39. 39 lashes. That's it. You know it's going to end. That's not as scary as death, which is final. Okay. Whereas torture, endless torture by an enemy might actually be worse than death. Okay. So again, we started with, okay, let's just review this part. We learn money and not lashes for Hachovel from this fight that two people are having. They were clearly warned for death. That means they must have been warned for lashes. Rav Ashi says, not necessarily. And even if so, who says that Mammon, that death is more severe than Malkut? Maybe I'll accept that if you were warned for something severe, you're also warned for something less severe, but maybe lashes are more severe than death. To which his son doesn't, or his son, or this Rav Sama, the son of Rav Asi, doesn't like this and says, no way, no how. Maybe endless torture, yes, but not torture of Malkut. Matkav Rav Yaakov min Harpikot. Rav Yaakov min Harpikot doesn't like this answer. He says, Hanicha Rabbanan. Now we're going to see there's a big debate about this woman. If you intend to kill one person, you kill somebody else instead, well, we said you get the death penalty because that's what the Torah said, nefesh tachat nefesh. So all you're saying works according to the rabbis, Amrei nefesh mamash, who take nefesh tachat nefesh literally. Ela Rebbe, but Rebbe, the Amar Mamon, ma'ikal memar. He thinks if you intended to kill one person and kill someone else instead, that's not you don't get the death penalty for that. You actually pay money instead. So according to him, this whole thing isn't true. You weren't warned for the death penalty necessarily, which means you weren't warned for that. You weren't warned for lashes, which means that's why you don't get lashes and not because Mammon overrides lashes here. So then you wouldn't have a proof from here. So therefore, second option here, which again is our third answer or third option altogether, how we know chovel b'chavero is Mammon and not Malkot. A different pasuk that's talking about someone who hit someone else in Shmo Kaf Aleph. Im yakum, after you hit him, im yakum v'talech b'chutza b'shanto, if he gets up and starts walking on his cane, v'nika hamakeh. The person who hits him will be cleaned of iniquity. And then it says, right, rak shivto yitem v'rapo yerapeh. You just have to pay money. Okay, now, why does it add v'nika hamakeh? Means, right, what it really means is, seems to mean, you don't get the death penalty. Now the Gemara says, what a weird thing. Or Rava says, will we think that if he got up and he's walking on his cane, that you would get the death penalty? You don't need to tell us. You won't get the death penalty. Of course you don't get the death penalty. He's not dead. You only get the death penalty if you kill a person. What it means is that until we figure out, is he really going to make it or not, right? Many times, right, things happen, someone gets injured, and then eventually they die from their injuries, right? They might die 5 months later from their injuries. Well, then you actually are deserving of the death penalty because you did that. Obviously, you'd have to prove, right, what caused it, what didn't. But this happens very often. So, you put them in jail, and you wait to see, if he dies, you kill him. Right, you kill the person who killed him. And if not, then you just pay the bills, right? The doctor's bills and the other bills. So, what's the case? In other words, if it's going to be either death penalty or money, then it must be, right? Again, this is going to go back to what we saw last time. If you didn't warn him, you wouldn't be getting the death penalty. It must be he was warned. The same thing we said before. If you were warned for the death penalty, then that means it included lashes. And what does the Torah say? Meaning money, not lashes. Again, we're going to have the repeat of what we saw in the previous sugya. Rav Ashi says, I don't get this. Mimai, from what? Number one, just because you were warned from death doesn't mean you get warned for anything less severe than death as well, that's included. Maybe not. And even if you say yes, how do you know that death is more severe? Maybe malkot is more severe. As Rav said, right? If they had tortured them, then they would have actually worshipped the tzelem. They would have been too scared and they would have worshipped the avodah zarah. It's a whole question about what about Yared Val Yavor? Shouldn't you get tortured Val Yavor? There's a debate about it. Some people say it wasn't really Avodah Zarah. It was really like a statue of the king, and it wasn't exactly idol worship. Whole discussion in the commentaries. Anyway, Amalei Rav Samba Breda Rav Asi, the Rav Ashi, just like in the previous sugya, Amalei Rav Samba Breda Rav Ashi, the Rav Ashi, right? When you distinguish, and you can't therefore learn from Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. But we have another question now. Matkiv Rav Mary. How do we know that the case was he hit this person intentionally and the nikah is being cleaned from the death penalty? Dilma b'shogeg, maybe it was accidental, which means that there wasn't any warning. And then what's nikah? Nikah migalut, from having to go to Ir Miklat, right, to the refuge city, where you have to go if you killed someone unintentionally. So maybe that's what it means. And then it teaches you nothing about a warning, in which case we are left with a kasha. This is difficult for what Rav Yaakov in Harpakod said, and unclear whether we could accept his reason. Okay, now we go back to our basic question. We had a contradiction between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. This was all within Rish Lakish, what we just did. Rish Lakish said, you generally get lashes, not money, other than a chovel and idim zomimim. And we brought proofs on the previous page where you learn those from. And then today we brought more proofs, more possibilities as to where you learn those exceptions from. Now we're going to have a third resolution to the contradiction. Maybe you could say that the Mishnayot go by Rabbi Meir. We saw before, you get lashes and you pay. Our Mishnah was talking about the knas and the payment. That Mishnah was talking about the lashes, and you actually get both. So then the Gemara says, well, Rabbi Meir afilu bitonami. Right now, the Gemara assumes if Rabbi Meir holds that you get lashes and you pay, then he also must hold that you also, there's no law of kimle at all. So when there's death and money, you would also do both. To which the Gemara says, well, you can't say the Mishnah will go by Rabbi Meir because afilu bitonami. The next Mishnah, I think it's the next one, right? But it's coming up that if it's the daughter, you rape your daughter, a man rapes his daughter, it's death by the hands of the courts. And then for sure you don't pay the knas. Well, you can't say that's Rabbi Meir, because death and knas, you would have to pay both according to Rabbi Meir, at least what we think right now. Now, if you want to say Rabbi Meir, lokel mishalim itle, met u'mishalim leitle, maybe Rabbi Meir just says lashes and payment, yes, but he wouldn't say death and payment, right? Death would override payment. Kimle applies in death and money. It doesn't apply in lashes and money. Maybe you want to say that, but we're going to try to bring a contradiction to that, although we'll resolve the contradiction and be left with saying that Rabbi Meir does hold Kimle, just not in lashes and money, yes, in death and money. If you're going to get the death penalty, then you're exempt, because that's already much more severe. But right now, we're going to suggest that maybe not. Tanya, now you need background. Somebody steals an animal, shiur or a seh, according to the Torah, a bull or a goat or a sheep, and sells it, and then either slaughters it or sells it. Then he has to pay 4 times instead of the normal 2 times. He has to pay 4 times or 5 times. Okay, if it was a shiur, it's 5. If it's sheep or from the sheep family, it's 4. So now the Gemara is going to say, what if? Okay, Bahatanya, it says in a Braita, Ganav v'tavach b'Shabbat. If you stole it, doesn't matter when you stole it, but you slaughtered it, right? You're only liable 4 or 5 from the slaughtering. You slaughtered it on Shabbat. Now, slaughtering on Shabbat is a malacha. So that's kimle, right? You have death penalty and monetary all happening at the same time. Ganav v'tavach l'avodat kochavim, where you slaughtered it in the name, right? You stole and then slaughtered it in the name of avodah zarah, for idol worship. That also you'd be liable to death penalty. Ganav shor haniskal utvacho. So we're going to talk about what that is later. Okay, but you stole a shiur that was supposed to get stoned and you slaughtered it. Mishalem tashlumei arba'a v'chamisha. You pay 4 or 5 times. Divrei Rabbi Meir. The chachamim potrim. Chachamim, we're going to have to understand why they exempt them. We'll get to that later, tomorrow's class. So what do you see here? According to Rabbi Meir, you actually have to pay. Here it seems like meit u'mishalem. Okay, so right, then you're going to have a problem with that Mishnah further on. To which the Gemara says, no. He thinks you pay here for a different reason. Wasn't it said about that Braita? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Rabbi Yaakov, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Either Rabbi Yaakov said the name of Rabbi Yochanan, or Rabbi Yirmiyah said the name of Rish Lakish. Rabbi Avin, and this is what they said, Rabbi Avin, Rabbi Ila, the whole chevruta mishmeta Rabbi Yochanan Amrei. So Rabbi Avin, Rabbi Ila, and all of the students of, saying the name of Rabbi Yochanan, the following. B'tovech al yedei achim. That Braita is talking about, somebody else slaughtered it. I stole it. Someone else slaughtered it on Shabbat. So they are liable to the death penalty, and I'm liable to pay the 4 or 5. To which the Gemara says, wait a minute. And then that's why there's no kimle, because I did one thing, they did something else. I didn't do. There wasn't kimle because I wasn't the one who slaughtered it. To which the Gemara says, wait, something doesn't make sense here. If I sin, if you sinned, you slaughtered it. That's what makes me chayav arba'a v'chamisha. I only stole it. I did the first part. You did the second part. I'm going to have to pay. It doesn't make any sense. Why should I pay 4 or 5 for something that you did? Generally, we say ein shaliach lidvar avera, which means if you do something wrong and I sent you to do it, you can't claim, oh, she sent me to do it. It's her fault. No, you did it yourself, right? You should have known better and said, no, I'm not going to do something wrong just because you told me to do it. Okay, so doesn't make any sense. To which we're going to have 3 answers why in this unique case, yes, I'm going to be responsible, even though you're the one who slaughtered it. Amar Rava, and it's a special drasha from the Torah. So 3 answers. Rava says, Amar Rachmana, utvacho o mecharo. I told you, it's either if you slaughter it or you sell it. Ma mechira al yedei acher. Now, if I sell it, there's someone else involved with me. I can't sell anything unless there's someone on the other side. If you don't agree to buy it, then I'm not selling anything. So I can only sell if there's someone else involved. So therefore, I could be liable. Since I'm liable for selling when I wasn't fully responsible, I could be liable for the slaughter even if I wasn't the one who slaughtered. Not exactly the same, but it's a drasha. Debate Rabbi Yishmael Tana O l'rabot tashliach. It says tfacho o mecharo. Why didn't it just say tfacho u mecharo or something like that? So again, it's needed really for the simple reading, but it's darshaned also to say also a shaliach will be responsible. It comes to include an additional something. Right? Again, if a shaliach did it, it means I'm responsible. To be Chizkiah Tana in the house of Chizkiah, they learned out Tachat l'rabot et hashaliach. It says you're supposed to pay 5 Tachat hashul v'arba'atzon Tachat aseh. Should have just said arba'a bishul, chamisha bishul, right? 4 ashur. It didn't have to say Tachat. Tachat means in place of. What does it sound like? Oh, like if someone does it in place of me, I could still be responsible. Matkavla Marzutra. Marzutra now says, wait, mi kamidi. He says there's something ridiculous here. The fact that Kimle doesn't apply here because you did the tvicha, but in the end, I have to pay the money. Well, if I had done the whole thing myself, what would have happened? I would have been exempt. So comes the Gemara and Marzutra, and he says, "Mi kamiti di ilu abed iu lam chayv." Is there such a thing that if I do it myself, I won't be responsible? But elamishum va'avid shaliach u'machayev. But you did it now. You did the tvicha. I'm now going to be responsible because you did it on Shabbat, so you're responsible for the Shabbat, but I'm responsible to pay. So if I did it, the whole thing myself, I would have been exempt from payment. Of course, I'd be liable to the death penalty, but I'd be exempt from paying. So how could we have something that I myself wouldn't be responsible for because I had a shaliach do it? Now all of a sudden I'm responsible. Makes no sense. To which the Gemara answers, and we'll end with this, and it's very interesting in terms of the concept of kimle. When I'm exempt from paying, if I did it myself, I'd be exempt from paying. It's not because I'm not liable for paying. I am. But what? Kimle basically exempts me from the payment. But it's still there. It's not like I erase it. I'm not responsible. Of course, I did something wrong that I'm supposed to pay for. But we don't follow through on the punishment because of kimle. But it doesn't mean it's not there. So if I have you do it and I don't have the kimle, because, right? In that case, yes, I still have to pay because it's not like we're making it worse for me because you did it. It's that I'm also supposed to pay it in the other case as well. But kimle comes and doesn't make the court force me to pay it. Theoretically, it's still there. It's just kimle kind of overrides it, makes it kind of covered up. But it's still there. It's not like it's wiped out entirely. So similar a little bit maybe to the Tuma Hutra B'tzibor, Tuma Dechuya B'tzibor, right? If we allow people, when everyone's Tameh, we allow them to work in the temple anyway, if all, let's say the majority of the Kohanim. Does that mean there's still Tuma, but we're kind of closing our eyes to it, or it's not there at all? It's kind of as if there's no Tuma. Okay, we talked about all sorts of things. Anyway, it's an interesting topic in and of itself, this concept of how Kimle works. It's a very interesting line. With this, we'll end for today. Have a great day, everyone.